Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. A choice but to get on, mandate. Get it on, and welcome to special one-on-one with one of my favorites. Mike Rowe is in the studio. Good to see you again, Mike.
How many favorites are there? I mean, if you had to just ballpark it.
How many grains of sand are at the beach, Mike? I don't know.
How deep is the ocean?
It's not countable. We'll have to ask Mr. Owl. He says 3.
God, that was... how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop?
Yes. Commercials were kind of ubiquitous. Everyone knew, I can't believe I ate the whole thing, and that's a spicy meatball. And
I can remember the exact cadence of that Owl's 1, Tahoo, 3.
Yes. 3. Yes.
That's great.
It was such a vacuum of entertainment. And speaking of entertainment, Something to Stand For, which is Mike's new film. Very good. I watched it in its entirety. And it was, and the reason I say that is when you interview somebody, you will oftentimes watch the trailer for the film. Sometimes you will watch 8 minutes of the film. If it's engaging, you might make it to minute 21 or 22.
Loved your book jacket cover, Mike. Love that cover.
Yes, yes. And you'll probably notice that during interviews for films, especially films that are an hour and 40 minutes long, the discussion will be focused on the first 13 minutes of the film.
It's not a coincidence, right?
Right. So I couldn't get it onto the television screen. I got it onto the computer screen, and I thought, well, now this is even harder because it's hard to last. And I watched the first story, and then the second story, and then the third, and I watched it all the way through, and watched the credits, and watched the end sequence, it's really,
thank you.
It's really engaging because it's all these bite-sized morsels of great Americana stories that you knew nothing of, with the Paul Harvey reveal at the end.
Yeah.
Which is a reverse engineering of a story, but makes it really satisfying when you found out who that person was.
Yeah, it's funny. There are no new ideas, right? Just the old ones every now and then. It's a wheel. And, when you and I grew up, we're pretty close to the same age. Paul Harvey was always there, man, telling us something we didn't know about somebody we do.
Right.
And I just thought as a construct, that was... I missed a flight once. I was in BWI, long-term parking, late for a flight. And just as I was getting out of the car, he comes on with one of his, 5-minute stories. And I had to sit there and listen, you just can't walk away until he says, and now you know the rest of the story.
Right.
Missed my flight.
Wow.
So ever since then, I was like, I'd love to be able to do something that makes people miss their flights. But also, this whole thing started as short stories for the podcast 7-8 years ago when I was trying to figure out what that was. And basically the whole pitch was mysteries for the curious mind with a short attention span. So there was no hope or no thought that it would ever turn into a movie unless, of course, you clump a bunch of them together and tie it to Independence Day and then go to the Capitol to say this and that about our memorials and so forth. Yeah,
and as I watched it, I thought, we're living in this time where we have this thing, and I know it from my own family because I come from sort of semi-hippie kind of socialist, group that I learned to disagree with for early and often. But, the constant refrain was like, I love this country, but I want to see us do better, and I got to go burn a flag. And it's like, you really do, you do love this country. We love it, but we have to tear down the statue of this guy who helped, fought in the Civil War or whatever. And it's like, we love it, but, and then the destruction.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't believe some of these people at this point when they go, we're all Americans and I love this country and I want to, reunite and whatever. And then I'm just going to come in and be divisive and sow chaos.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be against this country.
What's the old expression? Everything before but is bullshit.
Right.
I love the country, but here's the thing. It's like, no, there is no thing. You can be, I probably have more friends today on the left than I do on the right. And, the truth is you can be really divergent on just about every issue, but can you agree that the first 30 minutes of of Saving Private Ryan was amazing, or Band of Brothers wasn't amazing. Right? Can you get out of your own way long enough to look at a movie like I don't know, They Shall Not Grow Old, one of the best war movies I've ever seen. And so, the answer has to be yeah, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be, but if it's no, then you're no longer having a political conversation at all. You're having a conversation between Americans and anti-Americans. And
Yes.
if you're talking to anti-Americans, that's different than talking to somebody who completely disagrees with you politically about virtually everything. And that's what I worry has gotten lost. Half the country's looking at the other half as un-American.
Yeah. Well, if you go a little more micro with it and you go, all right, it's two parents. They both love their son, but the dad thinks discipline is going to do him well, and the mom thinks coddling him would help him along. But what if the mom didn't like him, and is not saying it? You know what I mean? And so she's suggesting a lot of things going, there's great love. I just think M&M's for breakfast is a better direction to go, or, whatever, not studying and not participating in any phys ed or whatever. And you're going, okay, we both love the kid, right? Oh, there's great love.
Sure.
Great love. And we both want what's best for the kid, right? They'll never say if they don't like the kid. And I'm starting to wonder if there's a larger group of those people that are letting on that maybe they're not fans of the kid.
Well, look, I mean, I didn't write the movie to be political at all. I mean, really, although the last story in it is called Something to Stand For. And I did write that shortly after the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. And I didn't write it because I was necessarily angry with him. I wrote it because I was just amazed at how the arguments were being framed and about how quickly the sides had been drawn up. And to your point, I think the micro example is great. The macro example is...
They said micro.
Yeah, micro's terrific. I just can't get enough of that guy. Everywhere I go, there it is. But yeah, sometimes your mom takes one position and sometimes your dad takes the other. And, I thought as a kid that was always happening simply because that's really what they believed and really who they were. But later I realized that's not true. They were always trying to present some sort of weird balance of power. Sometimes one would be permissive and the other would be restrictive, right? And oftentimes that evolved. And so in the country, it's similar, I think. We have to be able to function in a way that acknowledges a modicum of shared beliefs. Now, maybe it's a border. Maybe it's the pledge. Maybe it's the national anthem. Maybe it's the reverence for Memorial Day. Maybe, we can throw out any number of things, but I think that what's going on that macro level is that whatever is on your list of things, that list is shorter now than it's ever been. And so nobody wants a lecture. Nobody wants a sermon. I've got opinions, and you don't do a movie unless you want to share some of those opinions. But I'm so glad to hear you say what you said because, first and foremost, it's either entertaining or it's not.
Yeah, it's so a lot of movies, you get to minute 22 and you're like, do you care about this character and where they're going to be 45 minutes from now? And if the answer is no, then why not tap out now, right? And it's really hard. Because I've made a few movies, it's really hard to stop 15 minutes in and go, do you care?
Yeah.
But you have to say, yes, I want to know what happens to this person, what happens in their life, or these events. I want to see how they
You have to
unfold.
care about something, right?
Yes.
It might not be that character. It might be the plot. It might be the biography. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to care.
You have to care.
You have to be rooting for something.
Yes, and these stories, I mean, there's a sort of fiduciary duty where you just go, look, as an American, I should know these names and these stories and these events, just sort of doesn't even make you patriotic. It's just a sort of, what's the difference between the Merrimack and the Monitor or something like, I guess you should know if you live in this country.
Sure.
So you care about the stories, it's also a fun game where you're trying to guess, who the guy 6'4". That was real tall for back then. Who might that tall guy be? I don't remember a lot of tall guys from my history books. And you start getting little clues along the way. But also, that the next one is coming down the pike. And even if you have a mild interest in this story, the next one's coming in 4 minutes. And that'll be captivating. And they were all captivating. And without breaking it down, I think there were about 8 stories, 9 stories, as I recall. All bite-sized, all fast-moving. Mike did a masterful job of sort of popping in and popping out again and, showing up and then stepping back. And just thoroughly enjoyable. And I think I would say you'll be a better American and a better person if you watch this movie.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
Can I put that on the website?
Yes.
Can that be your official quote?
That's my official quote.
Oh, no,
something to stand for.
Do you remember, did you ever take a field trip? I mean, I know you grew up out here, so... I mean, do you remember the first time you went to D.C.? Statuaries, monuments.
Well, so growing up out here, we didn't get to Gettysburg. We went to the Laurie seasoning plant in Eagle Rock, California, and looked at how taco seasoning was manufactured and packaged. Literally, we'd go to Alvera Street, and I'd go, why are we going to Alvera Street? And they go, well, it's a whole Mexican community. And I'd go, I look out my window, that's all I see. The guy's mowing the lawn right now. Talk to him.
So authentic.
Yeah, it's so authentic. Like people in the San Fernando. It's called the San Fernando Valley, where I grew up. Do I really need to make the pilgrimage to Alvera Street to get an authentic taco?
Right.
And go across the street for that? We did a lot of that. The first time I went to D.C., I lived a very poor, meager, blue-collar, as you know, life, construction site, kind of working man kind of stuff, drove a truck and everything for my whole beginning half of my life, and then finally got into show business, and at some point went to our affiliate, WHFS, I think it was, in D.C., probably around 97, 98. I was probably... 33 or something, and got to D.C. and saw then all the monuments and all the things that I'd only seen in movies and TV, mostly being blown up.
Right.
Alien ships and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I only ask because, like, I lived in Manhattan for a while, long enough and close enough to the Statue of Liberty to have no excuse for never having not gone. But I never went. You know, and I grew up in Baltimore, and so the only other time that I went to D.C. to see these specific sites was when I got loaded into the big yellow bus and dragged there in the 7th grade. And so I wanted to go back and really kind of relive that exact route, although there's some new monuments now, because you just process them so differently. I don't know how your experience would be with the taco company today necessarily.
Laurie seasoning.
Yeah. It's on my list, but
yeah, you'll get to it. But you don't want to do it too soon because you don't want to peak too early. That's what I did. I peaked out in the 6th grade, and it's been kind of a downhill journey since then.
But I mean, that's the other thing that I wonder. I mean, you've got kids in school. I don't, but like, do they still do that? Will they load you up in a bus and take you to the Capitol and get you out?
No, they don't. You were, you of all people, and me, secondly, I was driving my daughter and her friends to go see the Bircham premiere.
Congrats, by the way, and thank you for the shout out.
You're welcome.
Made me spit my coffee back in my glass.
What was the Mike Rowe on that?
You were on the phone and somebody was panicking because their kid didn't want to go to college and they were sitting home watching Mike Rowe videos and doing some other, whatever tawdry things.
And I was driving my daughter and a friend who were seniors in high school. I said, well, this guy's a shop teacher. And they went, what's that? And I said, oh, come on, you got shop. And they're like, we don't have shop. And I'm like, you got auto shop, right? No, they don't have shop. And they don't go on field trips, and they don't do any of the mundane kind of procedural, boring kind of parts of life that turn out to be meaningful, but at the time feel very sort of, let's get on the bus and go down here and then go look at this and talk to the boring old guy who's the park manager who's going to tell you about when the monument was constructed and it's made out of limestone, which was quarried in, and like your eyes glaze over. And then at some point you appreciate that sort of part of life. They don't do that. It's all fast. The part where there is no shop, and I know this is an important subject for you, and it's very important for me as well. That's all bygone era. Certainly in Southern California.
Yeah,
maybe in other parts of the country.
It's coming back. I mean, we've seen the needle move with my foundation over the last 16 years now, which is super gratifying. And the funny thing is the big universities have never made it easier to promote trade schools than they are right now. My God, talk about self-inflicted sabotage.
They were a Tiffany brand, and we just found out that all their purses were made in China, like a sweatshop.
It's
or
like
something.
gold-plated. It's not real.
It's interesting what they did to themselves in they went full Bud Light, essentially, in the blink of an eye, historically and sort of practically. I mean, I've never seen some entity lose it's as if the Dallas Cowboys went from a $6 billion organization to $2.7 million in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, or if they stopped training their players to play football and instead focused on something else entirely. I think about all of it as a kind of brand manager, right? Because the diploma is a product. It is for sale, and it ultimately is transactional. And you're charging a hell of a lot of money for it, and you're implicit in the bargain. You're conferring something, right? And so all of that has been called into question. All of it. I just had this conversation yesterday with the guy that went through our foundation. It's a plumber. And he's like, look, man, it's very, very difficult to sit quietly at home and hear about a student loan forgiveness program that is going to benefit Harvard graduates, right, who are not currently working in their chosen field but have this massive amount of debt, when the underlying institution is sitting on $52 billion in an endowment. You put yourself in the place of a guy making 130 grand a year, busting his ass, raising his family. That's a bitter pill, and that's just one. Throw in the plagiarism stuff, throw in the protesting, whatever side of that you're on. That's not a Tiffany brand. You're right.
No, I was in Timonium,
Maryland.
Yes,
sure.
A couple weeks ago doing shows, and I thought of you because a couple of nice guys after the show always go out, take pictures, and sign books and whatnot. Two kind of guys, knock around guys like showed up. Oh, big fans. We're electricians. They always tell me their trade. I go, what do you guys make an hour? $54 an hour. I go, that's pretty damn good compared to the Chicano Studies major who
$2,200 a week
left.
Yeah, that's $110,000 a year.
Yeah,
and no debt probably. It's,
No, I also was talking to my friend Mike on the way in that there is a new movement, which is a kind of blue-collar chic, where guys are getting into the trades, making good money, like making videos. And so the ship is turning around.
Look, man, it's too early for a victory lap, but, I mean, headline news this morning in the Wall Street Journal, Gen Z, right? They're talking about the tool belt generation. Believe it or not, right? This cohort that's basically become the punching bag, in so many different ways, deservedly so in so many different ways, but they've done the math. They're doing the calculus now, and they don't have 30 years of inertia pushing them into this idea that the best path for the most people is the most expensive path. They can go on TikTok, they can go on YouTube. They can see the electricians that you just talked about, the plumbers, the steam fitters, the pipe fitters, the HVAC guys who are basically every HVAC guy I know today is setting his own schedule and making six figures. Right. So they're looking at all that, and then they're looking at, frankly, they're looking not just at the cost, but there is a conversation that's reaching everybody. And it's when you see guys like Bill Aikman holding on to tens of millions of dollars in donations that he decides, no, not this year, Harvard, not going to do it. It's a long list of people. And I've contacted them personally and said, hey, if the money's burning a hole in your pocket, we award work ethic scholarships, $2 million a year. You know, it's a rounding error for you at your next lunch. Give it to me. Give it to me. And I promise you, the schools that our people go to get trained in these jobs, no one's burning flags. No one's defacing statues. No one's, it just doesn't happen there.
Right.
Because they're focused on doing something that's so much more primal.
Well, you know, they have an engagement that comes with using your hands and sort of being on your feet and also using your mind that takes up most of your bandwidth versus sitting in the cubicle and sort of doom scrolling and trying to figure out who to blame next for whatever event happened around the world or here. Yeah. And I don't think that people understand the relationship that has with mental stability. I see it all the time. I'm a little bit of a broken record, but I work with the blue collar folks and then I work with the creative folks. And then when something like COVID comes around, I see how they respond, and the blue collar guys handle it a lot better emotionally.
Yeah.
And something I want to talk to you about is I had this thought, which is we used to have a relationship with danger, and you work. Your mind works that out when you work on a farm or you work building a skyscraper, Brooklyn Bridge, or whatever it is. It's like every single tool that I used presented some benefit with some danger. And so it was always a kind of a like, well, I could use the router to round over and break this wood edge, but the router's pretty torquey and it'll bite you. The routers kind of quietly. Routers are the hippos of the tool world, which is they quietly fuck up more people than you think. You know, they're not the tigers. The tigers are like the table saws, but the spinning blade stuff. But it's really the ones that'll bite you. But so you sort of weigh it out, and then you go, should I wear goggles? Should I wear ear protection? Should I wear face shield? This piece of wood that I'm taking this router to. Should I clamp it down, or can I just kind of one-hand it, sort of press it down? I was always to one-hand it, move it faster. But still, there's a big difference between what the router did, what the bandsaw did, what the table saw did. Even the table saw was sort of like, am I going to take my bare hand and push this piece of oak through the table saw, or am I going to use the push stick to push it through? And the answer is well, if between the fence and the blade is less than 3 inches, maybe 2 inches, I'll get the stick out. But if it's 3 inches, I can just kind of push it through with my finger. But it was a lot of constant weighing of danger. And there wasn't an option where someone said, look, just don't use the table saw. You just cut it by hand. That's the safest way to do it. You'd go, yeah, but it takes so long. I'm just going to do it that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh the danger versus the speed of whatever it is. And every time you'd work on the side of the house, it'd be like, well, it'd be safer if you set up the scaffolding. Yeah, but that's going to take a while. How about I just lean the ladder? Okay, but don't reach out too far once you're leaning that ladder. Maybe have someone hold it, whatever. So we've got away from that. We all got into cubicles. We all started crunching numbers and working in this sort of imaginary fields. And then we lost our relationship with danger. And so when something like COVID came around, we went, shut all the schools, go home, and stay home. And everyone was like, I need to cut the wood. And they went, no, we're going safe. We're going as safe we can be it. It's like, you want to make it as safe as you can make it and keep the schools open, not as safe as you can make it and go home.
It's the unintended consequence of a safety first culture.
Yes.
Right? I mean, safety first is everywhere. Safety first, if you Google it, you'll see banners. You can't find a Fortune 500 company who won't tell you at some point in time that their goal, their number one priority is to look after their people and to keep them safe.
In the vernacular, too. I was leaving a movie theater at night the other day, and I was like, the lady was by the door, she goes, stay safe. And I'm like, I'm just walking to my car in Culver City, and then I'm going home.
What were you going to do? What do you think I was about to attempt?
Rev up that motorcycle and
drive
see if
like
I can,
a nut, have a few drinks.
See if I can clear those buses at Wembley.
I just flew in, on a big carrier you've been on 1,000 times, and on the back of the seat in front of me, it said, "Your safety is our priority."
Right.
Now, that's a lie, right? That's what happens when actuarials and HR get together with attorneys. They lie to you, and they tell you absolutely that, nothing breeds complacency faster than thinking somebody else cares more deeply about your well-being than you do.
Right.
So the unintended consequences of a safety-first culture led us to do a special on dirty jobs. This was back in 2008, I guess, called Safety Third. Mm-hmm. And boy, did it piss people off, right? Because it told the truth. It said, look, wouldn't you like it if the pilot came on and said, "Hey, folks, welcome on, strap in, good news. My name's Frank. I've been married for 20 years to a wonderful woman. I love her. I got 3 kids, and there's nothing in this world that matters more to me than seeing them." So just so we're clear, my priority during the next 4.5 hours as we defy gravity and fly through the air in an aluminum tube is to get home to my family. You people are strapped in and along for the ride. Congratulations. Don't give the flight attendants any crap. I'll see you on the ground. That would fill me with so much more trust, affection, and most importantly, common sense than the big giant bowl of warm milk they hand you.
Right.
You want the truth of the plane? Take out your ticket, flip it over, and read the fine print, the carriage of travel, where you basically understand that you are taking your life in your hands. And there are a great many physical forces at work here that may or may not conspire to get you to your destination and so forth. The truth is now in the fine print. The lie is big and shining and right in your face and on billboards. And look, what you're talking about, there's actually a lot of science in it. A guy named Good, I believe, up in Canada, wrote a piece on homeostatic risk years ago. And the short version is this. Everybody in this studio, everybody you know, has a slightly different risk equilibrium in their brain. So we all have a slightly different tolerance, and that tolerance is always in flux because we're constantly adjusting for our environment. So you ride a motorcycle, you got your helmet on, you got your leathers on. Every single piece of research suggests that you take the corners a little tighter than you would if you were naked with no helmet at all. Right. They put ABS brakes in half the taxis in Germany a couple of years ago, and regular brakes in the other half. And then they put in sensors to monitor every single decision the driver made. Without question, everybody with the better brakes drove faster, cornered tighter, and had more accidents. So the unintended consequence of injecting safety protocols into a behavior was completely contrary to the goal. So to your point with COVID, all of that kind of came home to roost. It's like the intersections. The most dangerous intersections in the world have crosswalks and the little man who tells you when to walk.
Yes.
The safest have neither.
Yeah, no, because you're left on your own, and who, like the pilot who wants to see his family, you want to see your family. So having the man and right and then left again. Yeah, 100%. I've always said this about ATVs. That's where all the accidents are, because when you take a dirt bike and you hold it up and you let it go, it falls over.
Yeah.
ATV doesn't fall over. And I've seen, plenty of guys riding the dirt bikes with the chest protector and the Jofa and the helmet and the elbow pads and the gloves and everything. And I've seen plenty of guys on ATVs with a 12-pack in between their legs and like flip-flops and board shorts and their son, sitting on the 12-pack, no helmet, no shirt. And you're like, that's how these guys get fucked up, because there's some illusion of this thing is safer. It's in a weird way. We're there on many subjects. For instance, most people, I would reckon that most people who live in Southern California, let's just pick Santa Monica. Most mothers would rather their teenage sons, smoke pot than vape tobacco or nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, one of those things is going to screw the kid up badly. The other is nicotine and water vapor.
Right.
But they've waged a campaign, and it's been effective. And I've had many a conversation when I'm like, it's just nicotine. It's like caffeine, And the other thing has 10 times more THC than it had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And is really going to screw up your 17-year-old son. But that's their relationship. And that's sort of the same with the ATV. They go, I don't want my kids smoking. Well, it's not smoking, it's vaping. Well, I don't want them getting addicted to the nicotine. Okay,
Yeah.
but the nicotine is inert. Like, it doesn't do anything to them. Now, let them smoke the weed. That's natural.
The other thing, too, that factors into this is our love affair with compliance, right?
Yes.
And, the great truth that only now exists in fine print is something along the lines of just because you're in compliance doesn't mean you're out of danger.
Right.
And this is it's a different kind of a trap, but it happens all the time. I remember once on Dirty Jobs, not once. I mean, this is why we did the special. I was forced to wear a life preserver when I was standing in water below my knees,
Right.
working on a clean out.
Right.
Simply because it said, if you're standing in water over 6 inches, you must have a life preserver on.
Right.
All right. So that's just stupid. It's not dangerous. It's just stupid. What's stupid was a couple weeks later, I was up on a roof. We were hot tarring a roof. You ever done that little slice of heaven?
Hot mopping.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's the worst.
It's the worst. It is hard work.
Yeah, because you bucket up liquid tar. First off,
And gravel, man.
the fact that you do a shower in 2024, and there's a very good chance you're going to hire a hot mopper to come in there and mop that pan. They have synthetic stuff now and all that, but basically a hot mopper. Tar is the oldest substance known to man.
It's like an asphalt.
It's like the oldest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
When it finally cooled, there was tar before any other substance on the planet. And yet there's a guy in 2024 with a mop, by the way.
Smearing
It's
it around.
not a tar mop. It's just a mop.
Yeah.
And he's just got a bucket of this liquid tar, and he's just going to mop it up. But sorry, you're up on the roof.
Well, except now we call it asphalt because we're evolved
Yes.
and modern, which is a
Yes.
great word if you break that down, right?
But it's
Ass
still
and fault. I mean, it's perfect.
They still call them hot moppers, though, don't they?
They're still hot moppers and they're still fiercely proud. But we wound up doing this job.
My favorite hot mopper is the guy standing over the smoking kettle, and he's got a cigarette hanging out. And he's putting the molten tar with the tar,
You're not
literally
gonna
the
believe
tar.
this. You're not, no one believes this, but I swear it's true. We were leaving an ostrich farm in Victorville, and we were on our way. I was on my way out of LA, going home. The crew was with me, and we drove past that guy on the side of the road, standing there, cigarette in his mouth. It was 6:30 in the morning, and it was already hot.
Right.
And he's smoking a cigarette, and I said, guys, pull over, man. We just have to talk to this guy. And he turned out to be the owner of the company, and he knew the show, and he was like, man, we should do something together sometime. And I'm like, how about today? So we scramble the troops, and we do this whole show on roofing, and it was great. It was it was to this day, it's the only episode of Dirty Jobs that has no VO in it because it's simply not necessary.
Right.
You just follow the action and watch in wonder as these guys work circles around each other. Well, when we were done, there was another roofing job going on right next door, and it wasn't hot mopping. It was just these guys. It was a sloped roof, and then it sort of leveled out about 5.5 feet off the ground. And I went over and talked to that guy, and I said, look, I want to shoot some stand-ups over here so we can get an angle of the thing we just shot. Can I use your roof, basically? He's like, yeah, absolutely. So the crew's with me, and we go up there, and I come down this roof, and, they're super, super safe. They've got all the lines in place, and I'm tied off because at the top, I'm 50 feet up. But down on the flat part, where I'm 5 feet off the ground, I'm 5 feet off the ground. Right. So I take all my gear off, and I turn to the camera, and I start to say what I'm going to say. And guys, the safety officer runs over and goes, whoa, stop. We can't film this. I'm like, can't film it. He goes, well, you can't film it unless you're tied off. So, all right. So I take the lanyard, which is one of those stretchy ones, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about 4 feet long, but it stretches to another 4 feet.
Right.
Now, I can see you're doing the math in your head. I am now in compliance. I am tied off with a 4-foot stretchy lanyard about 5 feet off the ground.
Right.
Now, whether or not I should be tied off, we could debate. But nobody in their right mind would say that a piece of rope that is longer than the fall.
Right.
So I make this point, and the guy's like, he literally looks at me and smiles and goes, well, safety first. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, it's just compliance. We have to, this must be done. And the reason I'm ranting for a bit is because what's happened in the last couple of years in our country is exactly that feeling. That common people who are aware of their situation have looked around and said, why am I being forced to wear a lanyard that will not break my fall?
Right.
And the answer is because it's a law, it's a rule. And when you ask a country of people to follow a long list of rules that are no longer rooted in anything that seems like reality, then you're going to push reason to the precipice. And before long, you're going to have conversations like the one you just had with Riley Gaines, who I talked to last week, too.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And the whole country is going to be sitting here going, look, I'm looking at the fastest female swimmer in the world, and she appears to have a penis. Now,
Right.
what do we do with that? Do we acknowledge it or don't we? And there's going to be a price to pay for not acknowledging it.
Well, I was shouting at maybe Dr. Drew earlier today, which I do. I drive and I yell at him.
What is he up to, man? Every time I go on the internet, he's always working out with that guy whose name I don't know, with the abs and
He's working out and talking to me on the phone. That's about all I know. I can't speak for the rest of his life. But I'll ask him.
Tell him I said hello. And
Mike said
he's shredded, man.
He's always been Dr. Dreamy. But, I said to him, a lot of this stuff I don't like, because when people go, what's wrong with, so just tie off, you're 5 feet above the ground, who cares, just tie it off, put the vest on, you know what I mean? Just put the mask on, but it's paper, and the person who's telling me to put the mask on has got it twisted around their ear, and now there's a 7/8 gap. I can see their mouth move when they're telling me I need to wear, just do it, like, what's wrong with it? And I said to him, I feel this way about Pride Month or writing symbols in the streets or end racism in the end zone or something. I said it satiates, and I don't want it satiating. I got an airbag in my car so I can text while I drive. Like I'll be safer. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, you shouldn't be texting and driving. You're having an illusion of safety. So this we've declared that February is Women's Month. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we have Women's Month. Okay, but are there problems? We're celebrating women. And it's like, okay, but that's not specific enough, and it may not fix the problems that we're looking to fix, but it satiates. And then so everyone goes out, does their march, goes home, says, what were you marching for? They go, I don't really know, but we're done. And I'm like,
and then March is here, and we're all handsy and rapey and disrespectful.
That's
again.
right. March rolls around.
Right.
Yeah, now it's our month. So the payback's a bitch, ladies. So I don't like all the movements. I don't like the safety movements, and I don't like the societal movements, because I feel they satiate, and they kind of, you should go, look, we have problems. Okay, there are safety problems. Every single thing I did the entire time I worked construction was unsafe, and had some accidents and some near misses and some stuff that could have been fatal. And there were things to focus on, but it wasn't being 5 foot off the carpet with a bungee cord. That wasn't it. And it would have taken away from what needed to be focused on.
That's exactly it. If we're going to take that amount of time talking about the importance of being in compliance with behaviors that aren't going to have any kind of material outcome. That's what happened with masks.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that's what happened with mandates.
Right.
Right? Because it was like, look, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, whoa, wait a second. I feel like you just gave me a 6-foot rope to tie off on a 5-foot drop.
Right.
And so can somebody just take a moment to be persuasive? Just take a moment to persuade me. Don't just order me, I can think. I can reasonably come to some conclusion myself. This is the other thing when you were talking about the societal pushes and things. I think that in the same way people don't want to be forced to comply with a rule that ultimately won't save them, we also don't want to be told things that we already know to be true.
Yes.
In a cookie cutter way, like, Christ, I can't believe I'm going here, but like Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. I had this conversation at length shortly after that came out. I'm like, look, I don't object to it, but the part that I don't quite understand is why you think I don't know that.
Well,
you don't know me.
And it also suggests that we live in a sort of evil society, which is the example I would use is if I just turned on sports and watched European soccer matches and there was scrawled on the field, "End malaria," I would think, well, Argentina's got a problem with malaria.
I would think so.
And evidently, it's a pretty big problem.
Big problem.
Because I'm seeing it everywhere. And the guy took a knee for malaria, and the guy's wearing a patch on his jersey for malaria. And
Something
I'm like,
to stand for,
right.
malaria.
And
right?
I'm like, okay, Argentina's got a big problem with malaria. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to Argentina. And it's not a good way to eradicate malaria.
This bag is not a toy.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
I've seen that in giant block letters,
Yes.
and I've seen it proclaimed as if, you know what? We took a survey, we looked around, and we were stunned to learn that 95% of children are playing with bags, and the parents are okay with it. Something has to be done. So every bag, right? Every bag, every single thing. You watch a pharmaceutical commercial, which,
my
by the
God.
way, shouldn't be on the air anyway,
agree.
but 45 seconds of contraindications and everything from total renal failure to
Right.
profound lower GI disappointment to frothing at the mouth. It's like, what are we doing?
A couple things. I heard the one I always circle back to and enjoy the most is the automobile commercial with the closed course professional stunt driver, do not attempt. And I'm like, this guy's driving a minivan straight down a highway at 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you tell me I can't attempt?
Yeah.
How am I going to get the car back from the dealership if I can't attempt to drive
Don't try
it?
it.
Like, and
Too risky.
Look, so the world that I could live in is if you want to do a Mini Cooper commercial where Charlie Sheen drives a Mini Cooper through his mansion and down a flight of stairs, and then you want to do professional driver, closed course, do not attempt. I don't want it there, but I'll go, all right, maybe somebody's drunk enough to try this in a Mini Cooper. But if you're just driving through the Sequoias with your family in the minivan, I do not want to see closed course, do not attempt underneath that. And the problem with it is once it gets somewhere, it gets everywhere, and it just is. And Mike Rowe, I called the Malibu Anawalt lumber the other day because I'm keeping it real, but I'm doing it from Malibu.
Okay, sure.
And I said to him, do you have pressure-treated lumber? I'm sure you know what that is. And I said, do you have 3/4 CDX good one pliers, good one side pliers, shop grade plier, whatever? And they go, we got it. And they said, we have everything. And I said, all right, I think I'm going to come over there and get some of that stuff. And then they said, because they're Malibu lumber and everyone's driving a Tesla, they go, we can cut the plywood. They're used to cutting stuff because people aren't showing up in dualies with lumber racks, So they go, but we can't cut the pressure treated 2x4s. And I said, I don't want them cut, but you can't cut them? No, it's an OSHA issue because there's some chemical. That's it. Now, I'm going to buy 3 of them and take them home and cut them in the garage, but you can't cut it there. And I just realized there's just a rule for everything. It's safety uber alles. And people don't realize that it's stifling. It's like saying, let the young boys wrestle in the backyard. What if one of them gets hurt? I don't know. What if both of them grow up to be pussies their entire life because they never had this and they never learned how to regulate aggression? And I get what everyone is saying. It always reminded me when they go, the safest form of sex, abstinence. Like, yeah, okay. Let me keep writing. What's the safest form of travel? Not leaving the house? Like, that's essentially like just say no.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't work. It has a reverse effect, like you said when you were talking to me about the cab drivers in Germany. I was thinking about football helmets.
Absolutely. Take them off. Take them off and watch the head injuries go down.
When they were wearing the leather helmets, they were not spearing and leading with their heads.
Cars are safer in the driveway, and boats are safer in the harbor, and people are safer in their basement. But cars, boats, and people were not meant to stay in driveways, berths, and harbors and basements. It's just not the way it is. And if you truly believe safety first is the thing, let me tell you when safety first actually hit its zenith. For me, it was when two things. The first thing was years ago in a Ford commercial. I was sitting in an F-150, probably shot 300 of these things. And early on, I'm sitting there. We're parked. And I'm behind the wheel. And I turn to the camera and start making sounds. And say, cut. They run over. I had to put the safety belt on.
Oh, right.
Now, the car's
parked.
And off.
Oh, and off.
It's off. It's not even running. It didn't matter. Ford's policy was, you're in the car. We can't possibly show you. I mean, it wasn't even a conversation. We can't show you in a car and not buckled up. So that's the infantilization of society. But I thought of that moment a few years ago when Andrew Cuomo stared into the lens and was asked to explain the logic of the severity of the limitations and the lockdowns he had just ordered. And he said something along the lines of
one person.
No policy, however draconian, can be deemed wrong if it saves the life of a single person.
That drives Dr. Drew.
I found by the way. So I'm screaming.
I'm screaming too.
I'm like, okay, here you go. Eliminate left-hand turns. Drop the speed limit to 15 miles an hour,
right,
and mandate helmets for all drivers. Guess what? You just saved 35,000 lives a year.
Right.
Why haven't you done that?
I completely agree. And the problem is many people in our society nod their head when I remember, I don't know why those pops in my head, but I was doing a crank yankers call once, and I don't even know who I was talking to, a mortuary or something. And I just said, I lost my mom. And I said, no child should ever have to bury a parent. And they went, I know. Like, they're just like nodding along, and I realized, you understand, I just said complete nonsense to you, but I said it in such a way where everyone just went, oh, yeah, no. Yeah, if you lose one person, that's one too many, and whatever rules, I'll lock this city down and I'll end our economy if it means saving one elderly, arthritic, cancer-ridden person.
I said to Riley when I talked to her, I said, you are the kid in Hans Christian Andersen's The Emperor's New Clothes. Mm-hmm. You are the one in the town square, surrounded by the townspeople, who finally said, look, I don't know what you guys are talking about. That dude's naked.
Right.
And, good for her, but the thing I'm really worried about, truly, is the townspeople. It's us.
It's the townspeople.
It's like, yes. You just put it right in my head when you were just sitting there nodding your head, because that's what the townspeople did. Yes, his clothes are so beautiful. Yes,
right.
It's so. Yes, no child should ever have to bury a parent. Yes, the bag is not a toy.
Right.
Yes. We are being coddled, and we are being infantilized, and it's happening like the frog in the boiling water. A little more every day. The temperature goes up and up and up, and I think you're 100% right when you talk about H. sapiens' relationship with risk. That's the only four-letter word that matters anymore, because without a willingness to assume it, the planes never fly, the cars never drive, the boats never sail, and we are still double masked and down in the basement forever and ever.
I think, I'll take a quick break, but I got many thoughts. Mike Rowe's here, Something to Stand For, great new film. Comes out nationwide beginning June 27th, so please support this. Well, don't even support, just go enjoy it. How about that?
That's great. Don't beg them.
It's not homework.
Don't beg them.
It's fun. We'll take a quick break. Back with Mike Rowe right after this. Doomberg, the #1 financial newsletter on Substack. Concise, entertaining, provocative articles on energy and finance and geopolitics. More than 230 subscribers, 6 to 8 articles a month. I just read Cooking the Books, Exposing the Lunacy of the Green New Math. It's a good read, and I couldn't have read about this anywhere else. So visit Doomberg.com, Doomberg.com/Adam, and enter your email. You'll get previews of all the other articles and 5 free articles in a welcome email to get you a flavor of what Doomberg is all about. That's Doomberg.com/Adam. Get the 5 free articles. Doomberg.com/Adam. All right, back with Mike Rowe. I got in an argument with someone over the week when they were talking about signing some piece of paper, and the person didn't want to sign it. And then I said, I wouldn't have signed it either. And then they said, why don't you sign it? There's a lot of just do this thing. And I said to the person, I can't say that because this warehouse we're sitting in, and I'm not saying this to impress anybody, but we need to sort of slowly claw back our society, sort of one person at a time. And Riley Gaines is great. There are more people sort of bubbling to the surface that are able to speak a little sanity to a world that's just given away to the lawyers and legislators and stuff like that. But the warehouse you're sitting in right now, I bought this warehouse in 2002. And it had a tenant in it, and the guy did flooring work. It's always flooring guys in warehouse, but he did flooring. And it seemed okay guy, but I bought the warehouse, and I was anxious to put a wood shop in where we're sitting right now is where I built a sort of wood corral. And I wanted to put a hoist in the back and do some car stuff and all that. And I bought it, and the guy had 10 months left on his lease. But when I bought it, I had to introduce myself to the guy because now I'm the new owner of the building and he's got 10 months left on his lease. And I don't remember what the payment was, but he said, I'm looking for a new place. I'm looking to purchase a place. I said, oh, good, because I'm looking to move my tools in here. So when you find a new place,
let me know.
Grab it. And I'll let you right out of that lease and come down here and I'll start setting my tools up. I said, okay. So it was a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, he contacts me. He goes, I got a place. I bought it. I'm in escrow and what have you. And so I need out of my lease. And I said, you're out of your lease. Consider it done. And he said, fine, just come down here and sign some papers so I can be out of my lease. And I said, I told you you're out of your lease. I want to take this place over. And he said, yeah, but, I got 7 months left and that would be, $41,000 or something like that. I don't know what it is, but you got to understand, I got to protect myself. And I said, you got to understand, I gave you my word. I told you you're out of your lease and you're out of your lease, but I'm not signing anything. And he said, well, if you don't sign something, then I'm not going anywhere. I said, well, that'll be your decision. But I bet you do go somewhere. But I'm not signing anything, but you're free to leave.
Yeah.
And he just left.
Yeah.
And that was, 19 years ago.
Yep.
And we need a little more of that. I'm not a beacon of virtue. I'm just saying, I told you this. I looked you in the eye, gave my word, and now we're good because I told you this. And we don't need to get lawyers involved with every single possible facet of life.
Dude, my buddy Chuck is back there in your warehouse listening to this, just laughing because this has been my Sisyphean quixotic thing from the minute Dirty Jobs started. Everybody has to sign a release to be on TV. You got to sign a release to be on a podcast. You got to sign a release to do anything. And most people in the business understand, right? But still, Discovery had a release that I had to sign once that said something along the lines of, you agree to assign us the rights to this work product in all media, created and yet to be created, in all countries, on planet Earth, and all planets in the known galaxy and solar system and those unknown.
Really?
I swear to God.
That is insane.
Right. And so you look at
what
that.
year was this?
This was last Friday. No, this would have been 2004, I guess.
Wow.
Now, by comparison, that same year, a guy named Jeremiah Sullivan, who you should meet, he invented the shark suit. And I made one with him, those
chainmail.
Yeah, right. And then we tested it. So, you make the chum, the sharks come, you jump in the feeding frenzy, and you let them bite you, right? Now, that release was amazing from his company. It says, I agree that I'm about to engage in a truly ill-advised behavior. I agree that the odds of getting bit are roughly 100%, and that some very bad things could follow, including my death.
Wow.
That's it.
That's it.
So like the first release, you laugh because it's so absurd, right? That you sign it anyway. That thing actually made me go, hey, whoa, you're telling me the truth. Just like the back of the carriage ticket.
Right.
Right? Just like the sign on Mount Washington that says, last year, 12 people died on the other side of the sign. That's how quickly the weather changes. You should turn around right now.
Right.
Like, people still know the truth when they hear it, and we're starved for it.
Yeah, it's funny because I sold my house recently, and I think the document was about 86 pages that I had to sign. And I was like, I seem to remember my first house was about 6 pages, and now we're up to 86. And one of the documents to sign was I'd promised I'd never smoked or vaped inside of the house.
What about indoor plumbing? I mean, is crapping okay?
That's there's a fill in the punchline,
God, Lord,
du jour. But it's just, it's lawyers, more lawyers, scared people, a lack of dignity, a lack of character, and a lack of sort of, my word was my bond. I mean, one of the stories you chronicled in the movie was a guy who was slandered by someone who went with a pseudonym in the newspaper, and he challenged a guy to a duel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a great story, but I mean, people had dignity, and it was a big deal for people. So, my word is my bond.
I wondered, I didn't live back then, obviously. I hope it's obvious, but, I wonder if the existence of dueling, which was really pretty commonplace, had a direct impact on manners.
Oh, I think much like the helmets in football and the airbags and the crumple zones in cars, getting punched kept people in line. I don't mean duels, obviously more than that, but I mean just physically
consequences.
Getting just any consequence.
There's absolutely right. So if you remember the show Truth or Consequences,
sure.
Well, you take the consequences out, there is no truth, right? Why? If you can behave in a bar with impunity, if you can walk up to any woman, right, and say whatever you want, and knowing that the monster of a guy standing there isn't going to lay a hand on you, that's not how the universe is supposed to work. And the story you're talking about, without giving anything away, it was pistols at dawn. The man who was slandered went to this anonymous, very famous person and demanded satisfaction. Pistols at dawn. And this guy, he doesn't want to fight a duel, but he doesn't want to apologize either because he didn't tell an untruth. So the only way out of the situation is to actually escalate it. So my hero in the story says, okay, you want your satisfaction, you can have it, but never mind the pistols. Let's settle it. And by the way, there's a protocol in those days where the challenger in a duel doesn't get to select
the terms.
Yep. The challengee accepts the terms. So the terms went from pistols at dawn to broadswords in a pit.
Yeah.
We will dig a pit. We will draw a line in the center of it, and you will stay on your side of the line, and I'll stay on mine, and we will meet right at the line, and we will hack one another to bits, and we'll see who's left standing.
Yeah.
And now you can hear the sound of sphincters slamming shut, right? As people go, oh, now that's real.
Yeah.
Broadswords in a pit? Are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah. I mean, sort of the equivalent to you just raised me $60, and I said, let's make it $6,000. Now you have to see how do you feel about your hand?
That's calling.
It was funny. I just had this conversation with my girlfriend yesterday, which is I said, well, my parents never touched me. They never hit me. There's no punishment. And I said, I would find it weird hitting my son. Like, I just don't think I could do it, not even for moral reasons. It would be confusing to me. Like, I'm going to punch my son. And I said, however, then I've never hit my kids, but however, my nanny, my girlfriend brought up a story. She goes, well, yeah, but you like the story when your nanny smacked your daughter that one time. And I said, well, yeah, because my daughter spit on her and the nanny smacked her.
Yeah.
And I said, good. And she said, but you won't hit your kids. How do you justify that? I said, well, she never spit at her ever again. That was it. She spit at her one time, I don't know, 2.5, 3, whatever, got whacked and never thought about it ever again. And I thought, that's good. It's good for her too, because you don't want to go through life spitting on nannies.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's a bad look.
Bad form. And the sting of the slap will wear off in 5 seconds, but she got a nice little lesson learned. And there's a cop version of that, and there's a societal version of that, and there's a guys, taggers and graffiti and stuff. There's a version of that we've decided that is no longer acceptable for anyone to get slapped. And my thing is no, spit in someone's face, get slapped, learn lesson, turn page, move on.
It's called the broken windows theory, basically, right? You ignore the broken window in a neighborhood, and then there'll be more broken windows, and then there'll be litter. And the more litter there is, and so forth. And the next thing you know, you've got a real crime problem.
Yeah.
Right? So it's deterrence. It's the threat of violence combined with occasional violence.
Right.
My dad never laid a hand on us, but I'll tell you what he did, man. I remember driving down to Ocean City, Maryland, in the old Chevelle station wagon with the fake lumber on the side. His three boys.
Woody.
Yeah, loaded in the back. And we were just a nightmare, beating up on each other and just not behaving, not listening. I remember him sighing and pulling over and walking to the side of the road, and he took a branch off a tree, and he walked over to the car, and he just stripped off the leaves one at a time, and got it to a point where it was about a 3.5 foot long switch. And I could still hear the sound of that thing cutting through the air, And he got back in the car, and he put it on the dashboard. Never said a word, and neither did we.
Yeah.
So, different situations, different judgments, different temperaments, different protagonists. There is no playbook for this. You can't say, okay, teachers, let's go back to whacking kids. Because what kind of teacher are you talking about? What kind of, we couldn't trust a teacher today to administer corporal punishment. But why would we when we can't trust the media or the scientific community or our political class? Why? Trust is devolved in virtually every single institution. So all we're left with are the lawyers. All we're left with are the 600-page releases now. We're not left with anything that feels like goodwill or actual judgment. We're just left with the brute realities of protocol and compliances.
What do you, so what's your take? So I was, it was funny. So back to Dr. Drew, when he's not working out, he's talking to me. Oftentimes he's working out when I'm talking to him on the phone. Yeah.
Super sexy.
I can hear the weights clanking in the background. But I said, he said he always would go to me and go, what's the future? Because I was always kind of a soothsayer, I had somehow could figure out where everything was heading, And so about 10 years ago, I said, safe spaces and octagons. That's where we're going. Half the people in Los Angeles drive a Prius. The other half drive a Ram pickup truck with a suspension lift on it, And that's, you create this, you get that. What you do is you try to force people into an electric car and you force people into a Ram dually, with monster mutter tires on it. And that's always going to happen. So I said, safe spaces and octagons. And the people are going to convalescent safe spaces who like that kind of. It's too much authority for me, and I don't like it. But other people are just going to move to Florida and go somewhere that's less regulated and whatever. And then he pointed out to me the other day. He said, he goes, I think it was in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. They had a big UFC fight, and Trump walked in, and the place went berserk, right? And he said, literally octagons now. Like you were just sort of figuratively going safe spaces and octagons, but the octagon crowd went berserk. And obviously, Joe Biden wouldn't have gotten that. He would have gotten the opposite of that, or maybe would have gotten a "Let's Go Brandon" chant going or something like that. And if Trump walked into to see a Broadway play, then he would have been booed, because that's what that crowd. If he went to go see Hamilton, then he would get booed horribly. So that's the safe space. The octagon is literally now the octagon. And is that just where we're going? Like, I know everyone goes, I don't want to live in that America. And I go, I don't either. But at a certain point, if COVID 2.0 comes around, you just got to move to Florida, because I don't want to pull the kids out of school and not be able to go to the beach anymore.
Yeah. I guess culturally, I would agree with it totally. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. The mask stopped becoming a health accoutrement and became something else altogether.
Symbol.
It became a talisman. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, on the other side, if you see Oakley Blade sunglasses on top of a ball cap, we know how that guy votes.
Yeah. True. And you know what? Look, I think, even to the most overt, a MAGA hat. Okay, dude, your slip is totally showing here, right? So that's all happening, and I think it'll probably continue to happen, just because culture's so big and because we have so many choices now. Every single thing is marketed through the lens of, does it reflect your expression of your persona? Right?
Oh yeah, listen, people drive Subarus not because they know anything about torque or horsepower or bonderized metal. They drive Subarus because that's their vibe. They've seen the commercial.
It's love, it's environment, and maybe they like their dog or something, whatever it is.
I always tell everyone, Subaru makes the lesbian wagon with the puppies in it, but the other thing they really make is attack helicopters for the Japanese army. So that's who Subaru is.
So safe spaces and octagons.
In Subaru's case.
That's right.
It's exactly right.
And I think that's more true than we know. I think everybody has a safe sort of, space. Like even the most badass ultimate fighter has some of that. But I think that right now the current rules of the day are you got to arbitrage that out of your identity, because the cognitive dissonance that comes from meeting a UFC champion who also drives a Subaru and wears two masks, it's too much for people.
There's even go a little bit deeper with the metaphor. My safe space is an octagon, which is, I like building, and there is nothing worse and more devastating than the permit program here in Los Angeles. It's just, once they get involved, they dictate everything. They tell you to do insane things. The amount of over-engineering is totally insane. It is a perfect metaphor for what we've been talking about, which is, I go, look, I'll put these pilasters or these columns on a pad, 2 foot by 2 foot, number 4 rebar. They'll go 3 foot by 3 foot, number 5 rebar. I'll go, it doesn't need that much. It's way over engineered. Like, I've done stuff up in the Hollywood Hills where I've sunk caissons, 9 feet into bedrock, 30 foot overall. They need, grade beams and stuff. It's Hitler's bunker. And I'm just building a garage with a deck on the roof. And they go, safety? We're an earthquake country. You can't play too safe. I go, you can, because at some point it can get too expensive and not practical. And the house was built in 1923. So I'm going to have this bunker next to a house that was, just toenailed down by drunken Irishmen with no earthquake plates or shear walls or anything on it. So what? Where I'm going to be when the earthquake hits? In the house,
Sure.
in my bed.
Sure.
But you can over-regulate it to the point, and then as a guy who wants to build, I just want to build. I just want to be kind of left alone and do my thing. So the octagon would be my safe space because I want to do things. Goldberg, the wrestler, he lived out in San Diego or thereabouts. He wanted a big super garage with a gym in it and a hoist and everything like that. Well, he's in Texas because that's his safe space because that's what he wanted to build, and they wouldn't let him do that in SoCal.
This is look, everything you just described is happening in education. The identity of being a Harvard grad has nothing to do with what you actually learn at Harvard. It has everything to do with how you matriculate and the diploma and the connections that you make and so forth. And likewise, UTI, the automotive school, right? I mean, it's all of those schools come with really different identities. And I think like the real tragedy is that I have a liberal arts degree. It served me pretty well. I got it in 1984, 2 years at a community college, 2.5 years at a state school, and it cost $12,500. Today it costs $94,000, right? And so the result is you can't, with a straight face, tell kids to go get a liberal arts education because while it's valuable, it's not priceless. And so a lot of people don't get it. And I remember, you'll remember this too, it's 2015, I guess, the Republican debates, they're all on stage, right? And Marco Rubio had a line. I forgot what the question was, but his response was, you know what this country needs? We need more welders and fewer philosophers. So the crowd goes wild. And later that night, I go on my social stuff, and thousands of people like, Mike, man, this guy's actually really singing your song. What do you think? And I'm like, no, that's not my song. I don't think the country needs more welders and fewer philosophers. I think it'd be nice if we had more welders who could talk intelligently about Nietzsche or Descartes or Kant. And I think it'd be nice if we had more philosophers who could run an even bead. I just say this because I agree with you. And if the safe space is here, and the octagon is there, and the Ivy League is here, and the trade schools are there, and we just keep separating the things that really make a journeyman, a true journeyman, or a Renaissance man or woman, right? That's what we need today, and that's my answer to your question. I mean, if you're like, what do we have to get back to? We have to get back to that two sides of the same coin thing, where we have our safe space and our octagon. And we know that we're both those things. I still get questions to this day from skeptics who look at my foundation and say, okay, yeah, great. You gave $10 million away to help train the next generation of skilled workers. That's nice. But how do you explain the 8 years you spent in the opera, Mike Rowe? Mm-hmm. What the hell was that? And all that business at QVC when you were selling those things in the middle of the night. You must be a sellout or some sort of fairy singing in Italian. How is it? So people can't, they just can't get their head around any cognitive dissonance today. Mm-hmm. And it impacts everything we've talked about, in my view, from safety to the movie to patriotism versus politics. In 1998, 70% of Americans in every Gallup survey described themselves as intensely to extremely patriotic. Today, that same number is 38%.
I think that's featured in the movie.
I may have mentioned it, yeah. I may have mentioned it.
I'm just hoping I don't have a tumor, because I heard your voice say that recently.
Yeah.
And that's good. I mean, not good, but
no. I mean, it's good you don't have a tumor. That's awesome. But yeah, man. And look, it's not a disaster, right? I mean, patriotism isn't a thing all by itself. It's something else, and I think it's attached to gratitude somehow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gratitude is a big part of this. I also remind people all the time, when they're talking about the evils of the past and what we did to the indigenous people and slavery and Jim Crow. I'm always like, who are you comparing this country to? Because you can't compare it to an imaginary country that never existed. It'd be like if you had you have two brothers, or what?
I've got two younger brothers, yeah.
Yeah. So if there was a fourth imaginary brother who was on the dean's list and only ate vegan and was heading to Brown University and donated all his time down at the children's school or whatever, then you would be unfair to compare your 3.1 GPA to this brother that never existed who's a straight A student. You know what I mean? It has to live in some context. You know, every nation had some form of slavery. Every nation took some indigenous people and did something horrible to them. Every nation waged war on neighboring nations and so on and so forth. Like, they all had it. So compared to them, how do we rank? Not compared to this utopian nation that you never really explain. You know, that to me is a better way to approach this. Just like, how do you compare to your two brothers versus the imaginary brother that never existed?
Yeah, well, let's talk about the brothers who came from the same set of parents, not a different set of parents or in a different country. All that external stuff matters a lot. But I think your GPA reference is interesting too. If you talk about context and perspective, in 1955, the average GPA for all Harvard grads was 2.55. Today, it's 3.99.
Wow.
Now, do you really think they're that much smarter today than they were then? Of course not. The standards are far lower than they've ever been. And inflation is not just a thing that impacts the cost of getting that degree. It's infecting the grades themselves, right? Like inflation, what do they call it? Credential inflation.
Right.
That's a thing. And it's as real as the phenomenon you're talking about. The thing I wonder about all the time now is, what in the hell is your great grandson going to think when he looks back 165 years at 2024, right? Which statues of today's beloved figures in current media are going to be pulled to the ground? Who are we going to look at? Like, what are we going to think of, I don't know, meat eaters?
Right.
160 years from now, are we going to look back? Is there going to be any grace? Is there going to be any charity? Will your forebears have the ability to judge you in the time you're living in? Or will they simply look at your virtues and your vices, and then based on your vices, eliminate your virtues, and then just scold you through the mists of time?
Well, there's, in the Bible, I can't remember which character they're talking about in the Bible, but they say he was a great man in his time. And even the Bible figured, we need to add a little something, that he wasn't just a great man. He was a great man in society, in the society he lived in it when he lived in it.
Right.
Which you need to do that. And we need to one last quick break, and I'll answer all these questions and pose more with the great Mike Rowe right after this. Homes.com knows that when it comes to home shopping, it's never just about the house or condo. It's about the home. And what makes a home is more than just a house or property. It's the location. It's the neighborhood. If you have kids, it's also schools, nearby parks, transportation options, all the above. That's why Homes.com goes above and beyond to bring home shoppers the in-depth information they need to find the right home. And when I say in-depth, I'm talking about deep. That's right. Each listing features comprehensive information about the neighborhood, complete with a video guide. They also have details about local schools with test scores, state rankings, and student-to-teacher ratio. They even have an agent directory with the sales history of each agent. So when it comes to finding a home, not just a house, this is everything you need to know, all in one place. Homes.com. Homes.com. We've done your homework. O'Reilly Auto parts. Well, in the business of keeping your car on the road. That's what they do. Friendly, helpful service and parts and all the knowledge you need. I love these guys. I've always, even before they became a sponsor, a million years. I mean, back when I was renting a house up in La Crescenta, I'd always go to O'Reilly up there on Foothill Boulevard. Still there. Just passed there the other day. Always get my stuff from O'Reilly. Thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online. Check engine light. Is that on? Well, don't ignore it. O'Reilly VersaScan is a free diagnostic service that provides a detailed, easy-to-read report. Need wipers replaced or a brake light fix? They can help you find the right part or point you in the nearest repair shop so you can get it done that way. And they'll also test your battery for free in or out of the car. Talk to the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Adam, I think we just found the sequel to Carmageddon. The city of Franklin, Tennessee is deploying self-driving mowers to mow all the parks. So computer-controlled lawn mowing for each of the parks. How long till someone hacks that satellite and sends a rogue going around running over dogs and people's feet? This idea has legs, man.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Mike Rowe in studio, Something to Stand For is the name of a very, very interesting and entertaining film, out nationwide, June 27th. So we're talking about life, and we'll continue a little bit longer talking about life. I think there's an inherent problem in how you're judged in the future because people are narcissists and it's running wild in the streets now. And so when we get to a point 156 years from now when everyone is eating synthetic meat and we found out that cows have feelings, then it's going to be very easy for all the virtue signalers to go, oh my God, I would have never eaten meat. Like all the people who have inserted themselves into the, they look back and they go, I would have been marching arm in arm with Reverend King across the bridge and all that. Sure. No, you wouldn't have. You would have been at home or you would have been throwing a rock at them. No. But everyone does the I would have, whatever. And this is a sort of retrograde sort of version. Well, not retrograde, but it's a way to collect some glory by saying, I wouldn't have eaten the meat and I would have been the one who walked arm in arm with Dr. King across the bridge. There's a lot of that.
It's cheap.
It's cheap. It's totally convenient. It's completely easy. It's also like there was a time when people didn't say African American. They said Negro, and that's what they said. The sports announcer said it. People who wrote newspapers said it. Mm-hmm. That was what they said when they were referring to what we now call African American. And you would have said it too, but now you want to judge Grandpa for saying
That's right. Yeah, because you're backward and you're slow to the party. You're late. What took you so long? And so forth. So, yeah, man. I mean, and by the way, what is the current state of play with African American?
I think you can say black, but if you say the black, then you're back in hot water again.
If you put the in front of anything.
In front of Jew or black.
Or gay. I mean, you can't put the.
No. You can't use the.
No.
It's a constant movement. It's a constant correction. It's like pronouns. It's just there to trip you up.
I think so. Yeah. And that's why I think it's the fault in our stars. We can't help it. They were probably doing that in 1865. They were probably looking back at 1700 going, oh, Visigoths.
Yeah, well,
barbarians.
when you hear people writing from 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It's a lot of kids these days. It's sort of,
right.
It's 12:22, and you're on kids these days.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do with these kids?
Man. I look, maybe maybe it's not as bad as we think, simply because everybody's armed, not with a gun, but with a camera and an Instagram page. Maybe we just see more of it. Maybe it's just all, I don't know if the Heisenberg principle, the uncertainty principle, the act of observing a thing changes a thing, all that.
Well, here's the question. And this is another one I always talk to Dr. Drew about when he's working out.
We got to get you guys back together, man.
Is it just us because we're this age, and every heterosexual male throughout history who gets to our age goes, oh, these kids, what's going on? And then so there's a party that goes, maybe I'm just entering this category sort of chronologically, and I'm listening to DJ Khaled going, I don't get it. I don't get it. But maybe your dad was listening to the Beatles and going, I don't get it. And then there's another part that goes, well, wait a minute, the Beatles are good. You know what I mean? DJ Khaled sucks. And so I was like, is this really on me? Which also happens a lot too when I was talking to someone who was 20 years younger than me about, oh God, I'll try to think of the name of the actor, comedian, Will Rogers. I said, Will Rogers.
Never met a man he didn't like.
All right. And I said, Will Rogers, blah, blah. They said, who's Will Rogers? I said, Will Rogers. He was the most famous actor, comedian, voice, of his era. Well, I don't know Will Rogers. I go, all right, well, you should. And they go, oh, well, because you're old. Okay, first off, I didn't know Will Rogers. It's incumbent upon me to know shit about World War II, even though I didn't fight in World War II.
Haven't been to Moscow. Pretty sure it's there.
Pretty sure it's there. Right. And so there's a lot of that going on where, okay, so because I know who Will Rogers is, this is on me now?
Everything is connected. Everything is causal.
Right.
In that way. We talked a lot about risk before, and I think in this case, there's something to be said about certainty. Mm-hmm. And our absolute, we're just besotted with it. And I think as we get older, we're less impressed by it. Now, we might want to have it in our life because, certainty leads to comfort. But we're very, very long on it now, it seems. And I don't want to smear one demographic in particular. So I'll just smear the media. Everybody seems awfully certain about everything that's reported. Mm-hmm. You can hear it in their voice. You can hear it in the music that's behind them. You can see it in the earnestness of their gaze.
Certitude. That's the thing I kept saying all through COVID. Where do you get the certitude? Ivermectin isn't effective. You know what hydroxychloroquine is, although you learn how to pronounce it 4 minutes before the camera went hot. Like, where'd all the certitude come from? Why not be a little agnostic? Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Talk to your doctor.
That's not, how about humble?
Or humble.
So I narrate this. I narrate a series called "How the Universe Works." Mm-hmm. I've been doing it for 10 years, which, by the way, we still don't know. Right. And the funny thing is, like, as a narrator, when I'm doing that show, I'm paid to sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
No, I don't. Anybody who thinks about it is no. I just read what's on the page, and I try and do it with a level of verisimilitude that people think's believable. Every session, when we go back in to do a new episode, starts with pickups from a prior episode where information that I shared with the masses in a crisp, well-modulated baritone has been determined to be completely inaccurate.
Right.
Okay? And I don't mean like little mistakes. I mean like I went in to specifically announce the discovery of 2 trillion galaxies. Up until that point, we thought there were maybe 200 million, but new triangulation of various telescopes, Hubble deep fields, all the calculations, no, it's 2 trillion. We made a big deal of it. I announced it. The music was very impactful. The images, the CGI were great. Wow, big show. 2 weeks later, new data comes in. It turns out it's not 2 trillion. Well, how many is it? Well, it looks like it's closer to 100 million.
Right.
I'm off by roughly 2 trillion.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But when I tell you that it's 100 million, I sound exactly the same way as I do when I tell you they're 2 trillion.
Right.
And that's what every newscaster does. That's what every reporter is doing. To find a measure of modesty and a little humility along with a heightened level of skepticism. That's what I'm desperate for. A media that'll hold our elected officials to the fire, no matter their party. A skeptical media who's humble but determined. And not only do I not find those qualities there, everybody has become infected, and we're walking around with these damn things, and we have our opinions.
Phones.
We got our phone. Yeah, I'm looking at my smartphone, and I know that I can find not just a Yahoo, I can find an expert to bolster whatever belief I'm going to try and sell you with all the certainty I can muster. And that's a hell of a thing, because we're all armed with the same tool, and we all have access to millions of experts who don't agree with each other about anything. And we're all cursed with a media that's lost all of its skepticism.
Yeah.
So you can't blame Joe Blow from Idaho for looking at a mandate and going, God, I would like for you to at least pretend to want to persuade me instead of just telling me.
Yeah, I think there's something that's missing too that we left when we left the farm and the job sites, you know, the lumberjack camps and things like that. And we got into the air conditioning and the cubicles, which is a kind of a horse sense, you know, just a kind of a old-fashioned sense that you, and when I say sense, I don't mean to ascribe something sort of mythical to it, but I'm just saying, like, when you build all day or you do things that are very pragmatic, then you tend to get more pragmatic. And then when you hear information that doesn't sound right, you make sense of it in a much faster way, regardless of what the expert is saying. You know, when you hear mask up in between bites, you go, wait a minute.
Quick question over here.
Yeah, I don't, how's that going to work? You know what I mean? Like you have a kind of a pragmatism, a logic, and a sort of horse sense all kind of mixed, all sort of commingling in the same brain, where you go, that doesn't sound right.
What do you think we should do? Like today, when we look back at that, and now we've heard from Francis Collins, we've heard from Anthony Fauci. There was zero science in the 6 feet apart. Zero science, right?
Right.
Now,
sure.
I can still hear the certainty in their voices.
Oh, yeah.
When they told us. Right? And
well,
go down the
it
list.
had a dusting of judgment, and there was certitude and a certain amount of judgment.
And shame.
And shame, right. So there was sort of a, here's what works, and then here are the poor, you know, Walmart shoppers who are clinging to their guns and their Bibles, who don't want to do what the voice of authority is telling them to do because I am science. Yes. Yeah. I like the pound of flesh exacted for them the same way I like my Olga, my nanny, smacking my daughter. Like, it prevents it from happening again.
Yeah.
And I've said it many times. Like, I'm not litigious at all, but if the ladies from The View are going to call, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse a racist and a white supremacist, you know, over and over again, then I would like them sued, because at some point another 16-year-old is going to come down the pike who you disagree with politically, and you're going to try to destroy him as well. And I wanted to slow your roll.
Would you have sued CNN had you been in Rogan's place?
I probably wouldn't, just more out of lethargy.
Inertia.
Then, you know, my number one principle is lethargy.
Entropy.
And then principle comes second to that. But he should have, they essentially discredited themselves in that situation, to me. Lost, you know, what they really lost is not a lawsuit. What they lost is, public I have trust. Young people who work in this building, and I've said to a lot of them, would you trust CNN now if they were coming out with something? They go, no, I wouldn't. And they go, what if I asked you that question 6 years ago? Would you? And they went, oh yeah, for sure. That's a big loss.
Yeah.
You can't cut a check and cover that loss.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Covington thing. I mean, it's a long list. And look, both sides have disgraced themselves, for sure. But, you know, what are the townspeople to do in this situation, right? What are we to do? What are we to make of a couple of networks, you know, both just riven with scandal? They've literally shot themselves in both feet again and again and again and again and again, and still with the certainty
Yes.
and still with the, most trusted. And like, what are you selling?
Well, when you hear like democracy dies in darkness and stuff like that, it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing at this point. I don't look, I think when we were talking earlier back in the day, you would either drink Bud or you drank Coors. And now there's a million IPAs and everyone's got their own drink. And it's rare to see two guys who even drink the same beer anymore, which is not anything like our childhood, because it was like, by the way, people go on a beer run, you didn't even tell them what kind of beer. They're going to get beer, not your beer.
Dude, that's
just beer.
That's so important. Like, it's small, but if you think about like tile and grout or brick and mortar, right?
Either metaphor will work fine for me. Either way, we're going to need a sponge straw.
So as a builder, no. You know the answer to this. But for the average person, they look at a brick wall, they see brick. But the whole thing's held together with mortar.
Right.
There is no brick wall without mortar, period. Right? And so when you look around at a sporting event or a backyard barbecue and you see a couple of dozen dudes standing around and 90% of them are drinking the same beer, that's mortar.
Right.
That's a kind of caulk that makes sense in a social setting. Rockefeller, the richest man in the world, went to church, and he sat in this wooden pew next to a pauper, right? And so we had these sort of egalitarian melting places where the country really could melt into some shared thing. Must-see TV, Thursday nights, water cooler moments, shared experiences. It just goes down the list. I sat down to watch something on Netflix 2 nights ago, and literally spent an hour looking for something to watch on Netflix. Not because there was nothing to watch, because there was everything.
Right.
And so we're drinking out of a fire hose. We're completely inundated with our own series of endless choices, whether it's a brand of beer or our particular show or our particular podcast. That is going to change for the same reason that life was simpler when you had 3 long-distance carriers, when you had 3 major networks,
Yeah.
It was
everything's
simple.
Curated for you now, but
Bespoke.
I had this distinct thought earlier today. I was leaving my shop, and I thought it was a much simpler life when that was my life, and you just show up and you would just work. And there was no juggling or plate spinning going on. There wasn't 5 projects going on at once. It was just whatever was in front of you. And look, it'd be a pay decrease going back to that world. But as I was backing out of the driveway of my shop, leaving the guys who were working in it behind, I had a very distinct thought that it was probably a healthier. It was probably healthier. They say, this study that if you're shopping for television screens or washing machines, the 3 or 4 is good, but when you get past 7 choices, the person gets miserable and they regret their decision, Well, now we can apply that to beer and Netflix and girlfriends on Tinder and everything, right? I mean, it's
every single thing.
And too much choice probably makes the human condition a little worse,
anxious.
And a little anxious. Yeah, you either drank a Bud or a Coors, and you either a Ford or a Chevy guy. I mean, like when I grew up, on the job site, you're the Ford guys or Chevy guys. There was no Toyota.
It's simple.
It was simple.
If you're not enjoying what you're watching because you're tormented by what you're not watching,
yes,
then you've entered into then that's called a sucker's bet. Right?
Yeah,
and
right.
You've been beguiled by choice. And again, in a social world where social media has eclipsed actual media, well, man, we're no longer are the townspeople fundamentally consumers. The townspeople are now broadcasters and producers and influencers, some legitimately. But all of us in our own right have curated our audiences, and we've decided who we wish to follow and who we want to follow us. And so we've got it so granular now that it's very difficult to know what to stand for, to shamelessly bring it back to me for a moment. But that, like, how do you figure out in this bouillabaisse of possibility, like, what actually matters? Should I be on Substack? Should I be reading Schellenberger and Taibbi, or am I better off just seeing what Dan Rather's still up to?
Yeah, I know. I will. As we wrap this up, I will say this: you'll be much better off with a hobby. You find something to put your hands on and put together. I literally. We're now heading toward Laguna Seca and the vintage car race that I do every year. And I woke up excited this morning because I have to figure out what kind of vintage bi-ply tires are going on this old Datsun BRE race car I'm going to race, and started going through the machinations of prepping it and thinking about trailering and where we're going to pit and when the run group was going off and who else. I was reading an email, what other cars are in my run group, and what tires will they let you run, because you can't run modern tires on it, and so on and so forth. And I got excited about the notion of figuring out whether I'm going with the Hoosier Street TD tires or the Goodyear Blue Streak tires. Mm-hmm. And I got excited over going, I know my guy over at Roger Krause Racing Tires, and I'm going to call him, and I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to say to him, I got a 69 Datsun 2000 Roadster, and what do you think's better, the Street TDs or the Blue Streaks, and what sizes do you have them both in, and what do they weigh?
Yeah.
And I want to know what's the tread width and stuff like that.
You want to geek out on it.
I want to geek out on it. And all of a sudden, you're a million miles away from everything that's going on in Hamas and Nancy Pelosi and whatever, Washington. It's just you're on to your own thing. And we're at a point now where you need a hobby like you need a treadmill and you live in an apartment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a health issue now. There's no more walking to the well 6 miles each way to get water. We have to simulate this thing now. And you're going to have to simulate this sort of tactile life that you don't need to engage in. And everyone's going to tell you, what are you wasting your time for? Don't do it. Let someone do it for you. Pay somebody to do it. And you have to ignore all that and do it yourself.
Well, there's that. And then throw in the cloud and throw in AI and throw in your avatar version of yourself having a hobby, right? And then it's just like one level down. I mean, you're basically talking about job satisfaction in a way, I think.
Yeah.
And I love the word vocation. Mm-hmm. In fact, before it was shop class, remember, it was the vocational arts. Mm-hmm. The arts, right?
Arts, right.
And whenever you take the art away from a thing, then you're just left with the brute realities of the thing.
Right.
And that's how we got Votech, which led to shop, and then we walked it around the barn and shot it, and now it's gone. But this idea of marrying your vocation with your avocation, man, you want a little poetry to wind this thing down?
Yes.
Robert Frost wrote this. It was called Two Tramps in Mud Time. And it's a great poem. He's in his backyard, and he's splitting wood, which he loves to do. Mm-hmm. And out of the mud, two strangers come, right? And they're these lumberjacks, and they're hungry, and they've been living in the camps. They're lumberjacks, and they're looking at this guy doing something he loves, right? But they need, this is their job. So they ask him, can we cut this for you? Can we do this for you? This is what we do, and we're hungry. And so the poem is really a moral dilemma on what happens when love and need collide from different parties, which I think is happening a lot today. Anyhow, it's a long poem, but the end comes right up to this moment where he's been really propositioned, and he has to figure out what to do. And he says, nothing on either side was said. They knew they had but to stay their stay, and all their logic would fill my head. Because who am I to take another man's work for play? My right might be love, but theirs is need, and where the two exist in twain, theirs was the better right, agreed. But yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my avocation with my vocation, as my two eyes make one in sight. For only when love and need are one, and work is play for mortal stakes, can the deed be truly done for heaven and for future sake. And I'm like, a lot of people know Frost, but nobody ever looks at that poem. And that is what's happening in our country right now. We don't know how to separate work from play. And the dilettantes are leaning too hard into play, and the rapacious capitalists are too hard into work, and everybody's all horribly confused. And in the end, man, sometimes you just have to walk out in your backyard and split some wood. And if you enjoy it, as Henry Ford said, chop your own wood. It'll warm you twice.
God, that guy's good.
He was good. Had a problem with the Jews, but he was,
Repented sort of at the end.
Yeah.
And built enough bombers to win World War II. Liberate
that.
a few.
That's good.
Camps where Jews were, so.
You should write a poem about that, man.
Well, I have said many times, where people go, fuck that guy, it's anti-Semitic. I go, okay, so you got a choice between a guy who's anti-Semitic who also built bombers at Willow Run and essentially won World War II and liberated a lot of Jews, or a guy who would be a nice guy, but not anti-Semitic, but not build any bombers.
That's your cognitive dissonance.
Who would
again,
you go
man.
with?
Nuance, baby. That's what we need.
Something to Stand For is the name of the movie. It's excellent. I saw it, and it's entirely soup to nuts, and I recommend it highly. June 27th is when it hits the theaters. And it's something I think, and I think I'll speak for Mike when I say it's something this country needs. A happy, pleasant, informative distraction, and a way to kind of, like looking through a yearbook at somebody and looking at his picture and go, yeah, I remember that guy when he was young and strong and virile and kicked my ass on the football field. Man, I miss that version of that dude.
Guy. Yeah.
Mike, thank you for coming in. Always a pleasure. And you can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows, and you can go to MikeRowe.com as well. And until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Mike Rowe saying mahalo.